Notice I've got some of these little red potential problem symbols, and I never would have noticed these gaps unless I had used Legacy and I had this option turned on. So when I hover over this first one here for child number 1, it says that the first birth was too late after marriage. So looking at the marriage, the parents were married in January of 1868. They didn't have their first child for more than 4 years. And so there's a potential gap there that either really happened that way or needs to be explained somehow. I would usually expect their first child, in this case, to come later on in 1868 or the next year, and maybe even in 1870 or 71, there's another possible child that's missing there, a stillbirth like Karen mentioned, a young child that died, but maybe Dad went off to find work or off to a war or something like that. That can explain the gap, but these little symbols right here are helpful. And once you can explain the gap, meaning, yeah, Dad did go off to look for work, then add that into the person's notes somewhere. Otherwise, I keep this on for me as a reminder to look for those gaps. And so if I click on that, that'll give me a little bit more information. If I know that that gap really exists and it's not a problem, I can click where it says mark as not a problem. And if I do that, you'll notice that that red warning symbol turns off. I've got another one. Yeah, notice, look at child number 6, born in 1883. Child 7, born 6 years later, so I think that's what this warning is. Yeah, the birth is too long after the previous child, so I call these gaps of unusual size. Or he also has an issue where the birth is long after the marriage of the parents, and I suspect that's what the next one is as well. And so I've got a couple of options here. It says I can right-click to exclude certain problems, or I can do some other things. Let me right-click. And this is what Legacy is looking at. Okay, so it's looking at different warnings, different problems, some standardization things, and some gaps. Now, let me go up to the top. If I go up to Tools, right here it says Potential Problems. I've got all of these, I've got check marks next to certain potential issues that I want Legacy to warn me about. So if I have a check mark next to born after the death of one parent, if that happened in the case of one of these relatives, then a red warning symbol will show up. If I don't ever want that to show up, all I have to do is turn that check mark off. Birth date is after the death date. Yeah, I've seen this. Let's see, other warnings. Warn if married under a certain age, and you can adjust those numbers if you want. Warn if the burial is more than a year after death. What else? Standardization. I like this one because sometimes I put a period after the middle initial, sometimes I don't, and so by having this check mark turned on, that helps. It just helps me be consistent in how I do it. Here's the gaps. So warn if the first child was born less than 8 months after the marriage, or you can adjust that. Warn if the first child was born more than 48 months after the marriage date. And so these gaps will help explain certain issues. I want to try to have what I call 100% complete families. I don't want to miss anybody, and so this gaps tab will help. If you click where it says Create Problems List, that will go. Now, that's not going to create problems for you. That will create a list of potential problems based on what check marks you have on these various tabs right here. And so you can click on that. You can see what potential problems exist. Again, you can mark as not a problem, or you can take a look and review the information. Okay, so that helps to explain how Legacy can help with potential gaps